time for you all, and this is going to be a pretty crazy story that happened only a few weeks ago, and it's the story of how my roommate got bit by a potentially rabid squirrel, and we had to take her to the ER. My roommate, luckily, she's okay, and she's had a pretty good humor about the whole thing, which is why I'm relaying this story to you all. But it's kind of a long one and a weird story how she got bit by this wild squirrel. So yeah, let's get into it. So this was a few weeks ago, and it was a Thursday, and it was a very long day for all of us. I woke up that day and I had a big marketing project due. So I spent 10 hours that day finishing this marketing project, and I was, pretty exhausted by the end of it. And two of my roommates went to get like a late lunch and an early dinner at a Mexican restaurant, but I had to stay and finish working on my project. But when they got back that evening, I remember the project was due at 5, so I think it was like around 4:30 when I submitted it, at the last minute, of course. And it was such a beautiful afternoon outside, and I was just done with school at that point. I'd, woken up at 6 a.m. and just been finishing this project all day. And it was so beautiful outside. It was such a gorgeous spring day, and the sun was slowly starting to go down. And so I told my roommates that I really wanted to go on a drive and just, enjoy the scenery outside. And, they were welcome to join. And they thought that sounded like fun. So they come with me. And at this point, our plan is just to drive around, enjoy the pretty scenery, and we're going to go to, there's an ice cream shop that we go to sometimes at the end of a long week for a treat. So we're like, we'll drive around and then we'll make our way over there and get some ice cream. Well, we're driving down this kind of main road where our college is, and my roommate is like a wildlife forestry major, and she has a lot of labs outside in this forest that the university owns, and it's kind of at the end of this long road that we're on. And so she's always wanted to show it to us, and she's like, let's drive down there, and there's a gate to get in, and she says it closes in the evenings, but it might still be open, and it'll be really pretty, so let's just drive down there and see if we can get in. So we drive down there, and it's after 5 at this point, so the gate has been closed, but we are like, okay, let's just wait a minute and see if someone's gonna come out and we can go in. So we pull off to the side and we just kind of wait there for a minute, probably looking a little creepy in hindsight, but we weren't there that long. And someone comes out, so I turn my car around so I can go in the gate. And we are driving down this road. Like I said, we're going into the forest, and there's different scenery. You can tell they're planting different types of trees or trying to study different things at different areas in the forest. And when we go in, the road starts off as paved, but eventually it gets kind of to a gravel/dirt road, and we keep driving for a while. So we're on the back of the property. We haven't really seen anyone in a while. It's still daylight outside, and my roommate knows where everything is, so it's okay. And this is unrelated to the squirrel thing, but when we got to the back of the property, like I said, we were pretty far out in the woods. We hadn't seen anyone for a while, but we turn a corner, and then immediately our heart kind of stops, because so we have an ROTC, which is like a government military college training type of thing, and they're on the backside of the property in their uniforms, and they've got guns or something, they've been practicing shooting or doing some type of exercise out in the woods, but which that's pretty normal, I guess. But the way we came upon them was, like I said, we were pretty deep into the woods at that point, and we came around the corner, and they were actually walking away from us, but for the first split second, it looked like they were walking towards us, and it was just very eerie for a second. Kind of felt like I was about to be in like some post-apocalyptic type of movie. That's just a side note. They were just out there doing practice or training. Yeah, anyways, that's a side note. But we keep driving around the property, and we kind of make a big loop, and right when the gravel turns back into a paved road, we're still out in the forest at this point, but like I said, we've made a big loop, and we're starting to come back. We see this creature dragging itself across the road, and it's really creepy all of a sudden. We're like, what the heck is that? So I obviously immediately put the brakes on my car, and what it was a squirrel, and not just any squirrel. It was a fox squirrel, which I don't know if y'all know what that is, but I can insert a picture of it here. I feel like it looks like the cross between a squirrel and like a groundhog. It's just kind of bigger than a normal squirrel, and its shape is a little different. It's dragging itself across the road with its front legs because it looks like its back end is paralyzed. And so immediately I pull my car over and I stop because we're like, oh my gosh, like what are we gonna do? I mean, this squirrel really looks like it's paralyzed. If he stays out there, like he's just gonna die. And there's a big vet med school. Our school has a big vet med program, and we're not really sure what to do with him at this point, but we just, we're all animal lovers, and we don't want to just like leave him out there to die. So we're thinking, in the moment when all this is happening and it's kind of chaotic, you don't necessarily have the most clear thinking, and we just didn't want to leave him out there to die. So I have a towel, just like a shower towel in the back of my car that I always use. I'll like put on the seat while my dog's in the car so that she doesn't get the seat dirty. So we're thinking like maybe we can throw that over his head or use that to pick him up so that you're not having to like touch him with our bare hands. So my roommate goes to pick him up, and she picks him up, and he obviously, this is a wild squirrel. To our knowledge, it's a wild squirrel, and he's obviously very like nervous. He's hurt. He knows he's vulnerable, and so like he immediately starts peeing all over, and we're just like not sure what to do with him, like where we should put him or where we should try and take him. Well, then my roommate goes, oh, he bit me. And she says it so calm at first that I don't even almost think anything of it. Like I don't almost think it's that big of a deal. But then, she has to set him back down, and like she's bleeding. I mean, it's not off or anything. He didn't bite her whole finger off, but like she's bleeding. And yeah, she's been bit by this squirrel, which the squirrel was, even though he was paralyzed from the waist down, it didn't look like he had been hit by a car. Like he wasn't bloodied or like any other part of his body looked damaged. Like he looked fine, minus the fact that he was paralyzed from the waist down. Well, anyways, my roommate has been bit by him, and she's starting to bleed. And I grew up in the country. We have weird stuff happen with animals all the time. My brain's thinking, like we'll just drive back to the apartment, slap some peroxide and a Band-Aid on it, and call it a day. And then someone says, my other roommate is there with us. I don't know if I made this clear. So there's the three of us. My other roommate's like, what about rabies? Like, does she need a rabies shot or whatever? And that's when we were like, oh yeah, not squirrel. Rabies is the real possibility. So at that point, my roommate being potentially having rabies becomes the first priority. And so we feel bad, but we've set the squirrel back down in the woods, but we can't help him at this point. And so we get in my car and we just take my roommate to the ER as quickly as possible. Now, I don't really know enough about rabies. Like, we didn't have a timeline for like how quickly you need to take care of it in order to prevent someone from getting rabies. So where I'm driving her there, we didn't feel like we needed to call an ambulance or anything, but I'm trying to book it there as quickly as I can, and we have to go back down this long road that we came to get to the hospital. And like I said, it's a main road, and at this point it's in the evening, so it's kind of a little congested with that evening traffic. Nothing awful, but it's not clear. It's not clear enough for us just to scream down the road. So I'm driving, we're in my car, and I'm trying to drive down the road as quickly as I can. And we get behind this lady who is going just so slow. And we're like, ma'am, like we gotta get my roommate to the ER, like we don't have time for this. And like I said earlier, you're not always thinking the most rational in these types of situations. But I obviously I know that I can't pass her to go around because there's too many cars coming to the other direction. And my other roommate, the one who hasn't been bit, she's getting kind of apprehensive about us needing to get there. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I know we've got some time, and us getting there safely and not getting in a car wreck on the way to the hospital is the most important thing. So I'm just trying to like drive as quickly as I can, not get too close to this woman, but try and instill in her that like we've got somewhere to be, which it's not like she knows what has just happened. But my other roommate rolls down the window, and my roommate is so soft-spoken, so she doesn't even really have a yelling voice, but she sticks her head out the window and goes, she goes, "Excuse me, we're trying to get to the ER." And like I said, we're going down the road, and this other driver doesn't even have their window down, so it's not like she would have even heard my roommate. But in that moment, we were just kind of desperate, and it was pretty funny. I was laughing pretty hard at that. But eventually we get to the ER, and we've been Googling, not me because I'm driving, but they've been Googling, how long, if she's got rabies, like, does it settle in? And it's like, we're okay, like, we've got time as long as we get there. So we pull up to the ER, and with COVID and everything, we can't all go in. So my other roommate goes in to check her in, but then she has to wait outside, so it's just my roommate that's been bitten by the squirrel. And long story short, she was okay. She had to go back for like 3 rounds of shots, but she got bit in her finger, and they had to give her shots like in her finger, right at like the point of the bite, because they want the rabies shot, whatever, to like be working as close to the point of infection. And that was extremely painful. Yeah, that was incredibly painful. And then she had to go back for like 3 more rounds, not in her finger, but just generally in like the weeks that followed, which I didn't know a rabies shot, like if you thought you might have been infected, was that involved. So that was kind of crazy. But my roommate was like Googling later, and we're still not sure why this squirrel was paralyzed from the waist down. But my roommate was Googling, and it said that like partial paralysis is sometimes a sign of rabies in animals. So it's a really good thing we took her. She's fine. She's all good. But yeah, that was like insane. And so, we had to wait for a few hours hours. I'm like waiting outside in the car, and I probably could have gone back to the apartment, but like I feel like I just needed to wait outside the hospital for moral support, you know. And later that night, we finally go and get our ice cream before going back to the apartments. And you know, it's pretty dark outside now. It's like 9, almost 10, and we pull up to the ice cream place, and usually my roommates will like Venmo me back, and I'm like, it's on me tonight, girls. I got it. It's been a rough day. And my roommate, who's gotten bit by the squirrel, she's like, no, like, that's nice. You don't have to do that. And I'm like, girl, like, you literally just got shots in your fingers. Like, that is so painful. And I told her and I are both really big animal people. And I'm like, I owe you one. Because if you wouldn't have picked the squirrel up first, I would have been the one picking it up, and I would have been the one going to the hospital and getting the shot, and that would have hurt like a. So I really owe you one. Even though it wasn't intentional, you saved me, because I definitely would have gotten bit if it wasn't you. So yeah, that's the story of how our fun Thursday drive turned into a ER trip, which luckily my roommate's fine. We never saw the squirrel again. You know, she has to go back there for labs sometimes, but it's not like she's ever seen him. So, I mean, he probably just died or was captured by a predator. So, may he rest in peace. We're sorry we couldn't save him. You know, we thought, even when we left and I was sitting outside the ER, I thought, you know, I like dropped a pin where we were so I would have our coordinates. But at that point, I obviously wasn't gonna like go back and look for him after my roommate had been bit. And we thought, we didn't know who to call, like from the university. And we're like, it's not like they're gonna send someone out there looking for the squirrel. And like, even if they did, like he'd probably be dead by the time someone found him. So unfortunately, we just had to let nature take its course. I am curious though, like how he got paralyzed. I mean, he could have been hit by a car, but like we said, he wasn't bloodied anywhere else. And there are cars that drive back there, but it's pretty out in the woods. So I think it's not, I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but it's not super likely. So who knows whether or not he actually had rabies, but luckily she is okay. And yeah, that's a pretty crazy story. I had to call someone and like have a phone call with someone about a club meeting that evening, and I'm like on the phone with them that night, and I'm like, you are not gonna believe where I am. And I just told him the whole story, and I just had to laugh because it was just so crazy. And luckily my roommate who got bit, she was so calm about it. Like, she was so chill about the whole thing, bless her heart. And yeah, luckily she's okay. But that's a pretty crazy story. I hope you all like this story time.